Welcome to Custom Home Builder Solutions, also known as CHS Video Overview Movies. This is a continuation of a first movie for the builder about the job costing tools in CHS. This will be the second overview movie. I'm going over some things pretty quickly without it being too detailed of a tutorial. In the first movie, we set up some cost codes, looked at how the cost codes are a master with master unit pricing and measure specs that can be brought in to create a new job budget and have a lot of your things automatically fill in for you, and then just do some changing of some pricing, etc., as needed for various things. I'd like to go over a couple of more things that can be done on the cost code setup master that can come into your budget and be useful also for creating POs, some defaults that you can set up. First of all, you can set up some default notes, and I don't have any typed here for Drywall Turnkey, but you can set up some rich text buyer notes that explain what Drywall Turnkey is that will come into your job budget if you use the cost codes master and print on your job budget reports or proposals. You can also write yourself some internal notes that will come into the job budget for this particular thing. If you set these up as defaults, then they will come in when you open each new job budget. And I wanted to point that out. I also wanted to point out that there's some default notes and attachments for creating new purchase orders for this particular cost code. Let's say you have some scope of work document, like a PDF document, that you'd like to have attached to Drywall Turnkey purchase orders that are sent out to particular vendors. So there's a feature here where you can click this little icon and upload a PDF that might be your scope of work. And if you attach this as a default attachment, when you start a new purchase order, it will automatically attach to that purchase order. And if we take a look real quick using the magnifying glass at the document that I uploaded, and I click Open File, and I click to open that scope of work. This is a sample a builder gave me, and I just changed the name of the builder and etc. a little bit. But this is a scope of work default attachment, and it's called a PO default for purchase orders default, so that when you create new purchase orders, you will have that default attachment. We'll look at one of those real quickly in just a moment. The other thing is that, let's go back to our plumbing. When you are creating a cost code and setting it up, you can, let's go ahead and do this pencil edit icon for rough plumbing. You can type just some generalized notes to yourself about the cost code that then can be viewed when working on a budget by somebody else working on the budget, that explains how you're handling that particular cost code when you're doing a budget. So let's jump back to our budget for this demo job, and let's look at this rough plumbing. I've clicked on it, and you'll see that there's a little notes pin here. That means there are some general notes about this. So if somebody's working on the budget for this particular cost code, they could click on this and then read those general notes that are attached to the cost code on the master. If there's a pin icon, that means there are some notes. Let's also show how you can quickly create purchase orders. Now, there's a lot of different ways to create purchase orders, but one fast way is to create, maybe you've gotten some vendor bids, you've chosen this as your amount. It is based on a vendor bid. You can enter vendor bids and even upload and attach a copy of their bid, so that you can create a purchase order from the bid with a copy of the bid if you like. But let's just use this on the budget line for adding a new PO for the amount that we've budgeted. And I'll continue to create a PO. And I'm not sure I remember who's the drywall person here. I should have looked at that so I wouldn't pause too long for whoever the drywall vendor might be. Let's just, here's one. Let's just use that one. The cost code is already dropped in, the cost type that's attached to the cost code, etc., and the budget amount has dropped in as our price for our new purchase order. So that's all I had to do was select my vendor. But I'm going to go ahead and create this purchase order real quickly and show you something that happened as an attachment. You could also notice that this drywall scope of work is here as an attachment for this PO already, so that if I email this purchase order to the vendor, that attachment will be attached. You could also attach the vendor's bid by clicking this button and have that be the second attachment. And in your notes for this PO, you might be saying, as per your attached bid, dated such and such date, etc. This is not a video tutorial about POs, but if I click this email PO and attachments, something will open so that I can email the vendor the purchase order and any attachments that are attached. So that's handy for emailing your scope of work, etc. I just wanted to point some of those defaults and how you use those here. If I had set up default notes for the buyer, they would already be here, etc. But I've not done that on this. So let's take a look at those reports that builders call me and tell me they get jobs just because of these reports. You can set up different report styles, in other words, the header, what the title at the top of the report will be, and what the header and footer might be. Let's just look at this, the default one that's in here, and we told it to say job budget at the top of it, and to print this line as a header, and these types of images as the footer. If you have an image of your signature, you can upload it and put it into the body of this so that you will have a real signature on your reports when you do it. But let's go ahead and just use that budget default, but just know that you can add up different styles. For now it might be called job proposal or final proposal, and some different headers and footers, and then you can select one of those styles in this drop down. And we'll continue to the budget reports. There are a lot of different styles based on different builders' preferences. You can do a basic budget that has both the budget and marked up, just the budgeted costs only, the marked up only, one that shows no zero lines, ones that show all the zero lines so that you can look at them. But let's just look at the basic budget for a moment. We don't have notes that we've entered much, but know that if you did have notes for the buyer, etc., those would show on these reports. But the basic budget shows both the costs and the marked up, and will include your logo here, has your top 6 priority measures we mentioned in the first video, and then it starts listing all of your unit prices and budgets, comes down to the bottom, shows the price that we put in earlier, puts in the footer, that type of thing, that information. And like I said, you could have lots of notes here explaining every one of those so you have a really nice proposal. If you do the one with the marked up only, because that's all that you'd like to show the buyer, then you won't see your budgeted costs, you'll just see your marked up costs here for each one of those. And another very handy report for doing a bit of forecasting is, if you'll remember in the first video, we talked about attaching stages to all of those cost codes, and you can produce a summary budget report that is summing up how much has been budgeted in each stage. And like I showed you an example earlier of another builder's, anyway, I closed it, but another builder's, he only had 13 stages, and that's about, he bases it on when he might be doing draws, is how he sets up his stages, and that's a good idea. And then you can sort of see about how much you might be drawing in each stage based on what you've budgeted for each stage. So that's a handy tool. Remember that we had items behind some of our budgets. You can print a budget that shows all of the items behind it. All kinds of things that you can do here. You can show, just various things. Grouped, the group totals only, the budget and marked up can be handy to be a much shorter instead of all those details. These are the main group headings for each one, so that you kind of get a one-page budget report. You can do one that also just shows the marked up only. So maybe you can get an idea of the various styles, how nice and pretty you can make those job budget proposals. What I'd like to do now is get into a little of how the job costing interacts with your budget and one of the big powers of CHS. Let's say it's time right now we've gotten a bill in on our demo job and it's just from the framer. We haven't actually entered any other bills, but we're just going to use this as an example. I'm getting ready as the bookkeeper to enter a bill, and I'm going to select my Arroyo framing. And if you'll notice, I'm going to go ahead and look at the setup for this vendor for just a second, because I want you to notice some things about when a vendor is set up. Over here, it's saying required, and there's a check mark for general liability insurance, and it shows when it expired. And like I said, all of our stuff is very old dates because this is demo data, and we don't want to just type in a whole bunch more data every year. But anyway, this shows it expired way back when. It could be expired in 2015 and still get the same alert. When you get a certificate from the vendor, you come in and can change this expiration. Also notice that our insurance agent has given us a rate of 2.54%, which is how much we'd need to pay. When we have an audit, we'd have to pay it ourselves if this vendor isn't covered during the policy period. But I just wanted to point out, I meant to also point out, my thing wants to update me just a minute. Get out of there. I wanted to point out that you can also set up what is called a default GL account, and the most commonly used ones, if you use the NAHB recommended chart of accounts, is a work in progress account, 1430, called direct construction costs. If you're on the completed contract method of accounting, where you just close the job to your income statement when the job is closed, you're putting everything in a work in process account. But you do not have to set up a bunch of GL account numbers on your chart of accounts for every job, because you're also going to be selecting a job when you enter a bill. I also set up a default cost code for this vendor, which happens to be the framing labor, so that it'll drop in when I create a bill. The time I create a bill, I could select another one. But let's create a job-related bill real quickly. I don't want to get into too much detail. I'm trying to show you something about this. For a second, let's go ahead and let it get open. Now it's warning me that the various things, it provides a payment discount, but we're not going to do that. And we're just going to say we want to deduct general liability insurance because it's telling us that that's expired. So a field is opened over here for us to go ahead and do that. But we need to select our demo job as the job. And you'll notice that there's departments that are attached to jobs in case you're doing different divisions of departments for financials, and that department dropped in. That default cost code dropped in. If I needed to select another one, I could at this time because it's for something else. And the cost type dropped in. The invoice date, today's date, and a due date of today. If you set up some different due dates when you set up the vendor, the program will calculate that for you, and you can also enter a different due date. But let's just give this a random invoice number, and this is Arroyo. You could also set up default descriptions that would automatically have dropped in. Remember that we marked up everything on that demo job to have a markup of 25%, so we're going to go ahead and let this bill be assigned a 25% markup for when we do draw requests to the bank based on our marked up amounts. And this we can do cost plus draw requests that are based on these actual costs that we're posting now, and they'll bring them all in. That's a whole different tutorial. But I'm going to go ahead and type in quite a large number that I think will be over budget, and I want to show you in just a minute what will happen. Also, already it's calculated the liability insurance to take away from this expired vendor. But I'm going to go ahead and submit this bill to accounting. But notice that it is paused and said that alerts have been found for over budget or over POs, etc., etc. I won't read all of it, but it allows me to pause my submit for a minute so that I can do some reviewing. Notice that if I click this over budget in red, now you might have several lines for this bill, and so it doesn't check at each line, it checks it at the end and gives you a red alert. This is letting me know that if I go ahead and post this, we'll be over budget by $125.75, and so I go OK, and then it's going to go ahead and give me a report that I might want to print out. Here's my original budget. There's been, this is my unposted costs, and that shows it'll be over by 125.75. If there were posted costs, those would also be showing here and showing the amount that it will be over. But we haven't posted any costs before, but you could print this out to show how that's going to be 125.75 over. Let's go ahead and make this so to be 1,125 over by. In other words, we'll put in 20,000. So when I submit, I'll get warned again about an over budget alert, but I'm not going to review it. I know that it's going to be over budget, so I'm going to submit this bill, and I'm going to post it as unpaid to pay later in a big batch of check runs, printing a bunch of checks, and I'll try to get to showing how the project manager can approve that or not. But first of all, since that bill has been posted, I'd like to go back here to my budgets and estimated costs at completion information, and I'm going to explain that to you. I'm now going to open something that we call the estimated cost at completion worksheet. This is something that is usually reviewed every day by builders to see where they're headed over on the job, and this screen is one of the screens I say is one of the big reasons that you would have CHS. It takes a moment. It's gathering all purchase order information, budget information, change order information, and doing some comparisons for you. Now let's just go take a look, and then I'll explain these lines, at our framing labor. Notice that it shows that we have an original budget of $18,874. It shows that we've posted an actual cost of $20,000, which I could drill down on. I can see who the vendor is, what description was typed in, etc. about that bill, and I can see that it is unpaid. And right away you can see that out over here 1,125 is popping out as an overage amount, and that my total overage, since we haven't entered any other bills, is coming out down here. As we enter bills, we can see the effect of that, but I wanted you to see the effect of this one particular one. What I'm going to do now is jump over to the estimated cost at completion for our other demo job that we have a lot of things in progress, and just show you a few things very quickly. Notice that here's the original budget for planned costs, but that we see that there's also a change order estimated price. We estimated the price to be $675, and if we drill down, we can see that it was for an added sunroom. You can issue change orders, and you will be giving cost codes to the change orders so that you can do comparisons. You can see that we had one variance PO for $50, and that our total POs are $4,218, but that we've issued costs for $4,450, which is over our budget, our total budget that includes the change orders, by 107. But notice, let's take a look at this specs, plats, and blueprints, and notice that we have total POs issued of 450. And if we want to use, which is less than the 500 we originally budgeted, if we want that to be what our estimated cost at completion is, we can do a check mark right here, and it's going to do some recalculations for us to come up with the totals, but I'm going to refresh those in a minute. But now our estimated cost at completion is 450. If we've posted all of our bills, which looks like we posted a total bills of $401, you can review all the bills, what you've posted those for, what they've come up to. If we know now that that's all the bills that we're going to have, we can check mark this as done. And that means that we're going to use the actual costs for our estimated cost of completion and have a minus $99 here. So if I refresh the totals, my overage is for all of these, but you can see how, well, let's look at one more line. Notice that the builder did a revision. Let's uncheck this as done. And this revision is what I call the scribble area for the builder. Maybe the builder budgeted $804 for engineering foundation but all of a sudden later knew that it was only going to cost $700, the builder can click a pencil edit icon and type an amount in here, and also type some notes about why they're making that revision. And then this will rule if the builder does put in a revision, it will cause the estimated cost of completion to be $700 instead of this $804. And then, of course, if I check mark this, the ECC will change to $687. But perhaps you can get an idea of how this ECC is used. That this is different. If you notice here, the total budget is $345. The total actual cost posted is $215. This does not mean that we are under by $130,000. This would only be meaningful if this job was done. Right now we're using this over budget because we're basing it on what our estimated cost at completion are going to be and how they're changing on a daily basis. So right away, even early in the job, like you saw in our demo job, you can see how far you are headed over the job. Now, one other thing before I stop this video that I want to point out is that your project managers, after the bookkeeper has entered some costs, can come in and improve the unpaid costs and have an awful lot of tools. I'm just going to open the unpaid costs for our demo job, which means there will be only one unpaid bill showing up for this project manager to approve. By the way, I forgot to mention that while entering the bill, the bookkeeper could have entered some notes, and there'll be a little notes pin here indicating that there are notes to the project manager that this is over, and it's very likely that once they got the bookkeeper in your internal processes would have typed some notes. The bookkeeper could have started some notes in this very same place here, and now the project manager is here and looking at this bill and can open the ECC for this line, that estimated cost at completion, and can see that it's over by the 1,126, and might make some various types of notes about it to the bookkeeper. Back to the bookkeeper, do not pay the overage, but pay the rest. And save that note. Normally there'll be a big long list of bills. There's various other things. You can look at the POs that have been issued before doing the approval. I'm going to go ahead and mark this as OK1 because I've typed a note, and I'm saying to the bookkeeper, go ahead and approve it. The OK2 is actually for the big boss or builder to come in behind the project manager and approve it, and it shows who has done the approving. So when the bookkeeper goes to post the bills and select them to pay for something, I'm not going to open that for the sake of time right now, but the bookkeeper can see that note and can do a deduction or go adjust the bill as needed. I wanted to make you aware that that tool is going on for approvals. Hopefully this gives you some sense of a lot of the tools that the builder can use to manage the job. I'd like to show you one more thing over here on the list of budgets about some handy summary reports. You of course can go print all those estimated cost at completion reports from the estimated cost at completion worksheet, but I wanted to show you, notice this profit and cash status of open jobs. This is a great overview report. And I'd like to take a look at our demo job. There's the price that we put in. Here's our original budgeted costs, our original estimated profit. Here's our revised estimated cost at completion, which has gone up right now because of that bill until the bookkeeper adjusts it. It's showing that we're now going to be under with this estimated cost at completion, we would be under our revised profit variance. It would show our profit variance. It will also show the net cash that we have due in and out on the job right now based on this revised profit, that we've not received any cash on this job now, and that we have these unpaid accounts payable in there for the demo job, and how we're short cash for that unpaid accounts payable. We've done a couple of other little things for that. Here's an ongoing job that is showing how much revenues have been received, how much is remaining to receive, actual job costs that we've paid, the costs remaining to pay, the net cash still due in or out, the net of all that. This is the current net amount of cash we've received, our current unpaid costs, and how much short we are cash for this other job. You can create purchase orders, change orders, so many more tools that are in here, and you can see those by viewing a list of our features. I hope this has intrigued you enough as the builder and given you an idea of where to start and how to use CHS for your own tools and make it your own. Thank you for watching.